everyone, welcome back to Cars and Zebras. Today I have another featured drag race, so I sure hope that you enjoy it. If you do find it entertaining, make sure that you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel because I do post these videos regularly, and also make sure to share it with your friends so they can enjoy it as well. I do appreciate you watching, and with that said, let's check out our featured drag race. This is a 1969 Chevrolet Chevelle, and what a gorgeous car, you guys. I mean, this thing is phenomenal. And as you can see from the badges, it is a Super Sport 396. However, it's not just any run-of-the-mill 396. Oh yeah, that's an L78. But 1969 was an awesome year for the Chevelle. By this point, the L78 had been out for a couple of years, but Chevrolet really didn't talk about it. And if you look at all of these original ads, it's not mentioned anywhere. They talk about the L34 with 350 horsepower, but there's no mention of the fire-breathing L78. And I'm not really sure why Chevrolet did that. You would think that they would want the masses to appreciate this absolute behemoth of an engine. And when I say behemoth, I mean 375 horsepower at 5,600 RPM and 415 pound-feet of torque at 3,600 RPM. However, by now most people know these engines were underrated, and I can already hear the comments. It's Cars and Zebras, that's an old wives' tale, it cannot be true. Well, actually, Hot Rod Magazine took a 1969 L78 that was all stock and to original specs, and they tested it and got 425 gross horsepower. So maybe they were a little bit underrated back in the day. But horsepower aside, these L78s came with some really great parts. I mean, we're talking 4-bolt mains, forged steel crank, a Holley carburetor, a dual-plane aluminum intake, and a delicious solid lifter cam and a compression ratio of 11:1. I don't know about you guys, but I absolutely love the sound of a high compression, big block V8 with a solid lifter cam. Gives me the tingles in all the right places. Even so much sometimes my girlfriend gets jealous and I tell her, "You don't come between a man and his big block." As you could imagine, there were several transmissions available. The standard was actually a 3-speed manual, or you could upgrade to a 4-speed manual, that being the M20 or the M21. And then of course there was the tried and true TH400 3-speed automatic. And as you can see, this car features that awesome 4-speed manual, and it is a close ratio. The old bias plies just didn't stand a chance, especially when the standard gear ratio was a 355, but you could get a ratio as low as a 307 all the way up to a 488. This car has 410 gears and posi. Oddly enough, posi was not mandated on these Super Sport cars. It was still an option. So if you want to do a one-tire fire all across the continental US, well then, this car with an open diff, that's the one to go with. Curb weight for the 396 was just over 3,600 pounds. This car is coming in at 3,808 pounds. In 1969, the Chevelle Super Sport was one of the best priced muscle cars on the market. The base Sport Coupe cost around $2,700. Then to get the Super Sport 396, you had to add $350. And then to upgrade to that L78, that was another $252. So at its cheapest, you could get into one of these cars for about $3,300. And that would be about $23,000 today. But of course, most people that bought these cars, they got a few options. And you know what, you guys? We've got the window sticker for this car, so we know the exact options and how much it cost back in 1969. Let's check it out. I don't know about you guys, when I look at this options list, I see a purchaser that wanted to go fast, and that's about it. Big block Super Sport 396 L78. 410 gears with posi, and a 4-speed close ratio manual transmission. This person wanted to drive fast. Yeah, sure, they got a couple other little options, the sport striping, the black vinyl trim. That's about it. And yeah, I mean, obviously they got the AM/FM radio, but you know what? Earlier that same year, there was a little band that debuted in the United States called Led Zeppelin? So yeah, it was kind of mandatory to get the AM/FM so you could crank those tunes up. If you hadn't already noticed, this car did not come with a tach from the factory, and that's because the original purchaser did not get the gauge package. Yep, on the super sport cars, if you wanted a factory tack, you had to pay extra for the gauge package that would run you 63 bucks. And the final price for this car was $3,887.45. Production for the 1969 Chevelle was phenomenal. They made over 400,000 of these cars. But if you break that down, there were about 86,000 super sports. And if we go further yet, there were about 9,400 L78 cars. When I dug through the options available on the 1969 Chevelle, there was one that really stood out. And in 1969, you could get a headlight washer on your Chevelle. It was $15.80, and there were only 562 cars that had that. Original testing from Hot Cars magazine in 1969 showed that the L78 could run the quarter mile in 14.07 seconds at 101 miles per hour. But with the improvement of tires and optimizing the tuning of these cars, I'm sure we're going to see it run just a little bit quicker today. But enough talk about the L78. Let's check out its opponent. Oh yeah, this is a 1970 Buick GS 455, and it is so sweet because it's also a Stage 1. And with that Stage 1, you got a lot of great parts. I'm talking heads that were fitted with bigger valves, a more aggressive cam. You got a larger 5/8" oil pickup tube, which probably should have been on all of the Buick 455s, a heavy-duty radiator, stiffer valve springs, and the compression ratio was increased a half point, up to 10.5 to 1. All those parts included, this car put out 360 horsepower at 4,600 RPM, and I hope you're sitting down for this, because we're going to talk about that torque rating. And here we go. It was 510 pound-feet at 2,800 RPM. 2,800 RPM and over 500 pound-feet of torque. I mean, just grab a box of tissues and listen to this exhaust clip. Now that everybody's cleaned up, let's talk transmissions. A 3-speed manual was standard. Of course, you could opt up to the 4-speed, that being either a wide or close ratio. But this car features the tried and true, extremely robust TH400 3-speed automatic. Standard rear gear ratio was a 364, but if it had air conditioning, it was then a 342. This car has 373 gears. Curb weight was 3,800 pounds. This car is coming in at 3,866 pounds. The 1970 Stage 1 really wasn't a terribly priced car. The GS455 started at $3,283. You want that Stage 1? You better cough up another $199, which in its cheapest form would bring the total to $3,482, and adjusting for inflation, that would be around 23,000 bucks today. That sounds similar to the price of the Chevelle, but remember, these cars always came with a lot of options, so you weren't going to find one for 3,400 bucks. Production wasn't great for the GS455 in 1970. There were only 5,559 of them. And how many of those came with the Stage 1 package? Well, only 2,465. About 1,800 cars had the TH400 like this car featured, 600 had the 4-speed, and only 16 had the 3-speed. Motor Trend tested this car in 1970, and it ran a blistering quarter mile in 13.38 seconds at 105.5 miles per hour. Up until this point, this was the quickest car they had ever tested. And this came only a couple months after they had a 1970 Hemi Cuda run a slightly slower quarter mile time of 13.78 seconds. But enough talk about these cars. Let's see what they can do on the drag strip.
Corey Peterson, he's driving Buick GS Stage 1. This is his first year driving, or drag race rather. Maybe his first time drag racing. The Buick 1316.
You know what happened? I know.
Corey Peterson has Buick GS Stage 1, the left lane, the right lane. Gary Place has the South Lifter 396. This is a good race. This is like 69%. Left lane, 1970 GS Stage 1. Right lane, one of my favorite colors from 1970, the Aqua. He went to the 13-14.
Again, thanks for watching, I really appreciate it. Please make sure that you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any future drag race videos. And of course, I'll see you at the next one.